Hello there, everyone. My name is Crazy Caleb, and today we're going to be taking a look at name codes. So this is the way the module looks. We have a left and right arrow up in the diagonals right here. This means left and right, this means right. We have a letter in the middle, and which also happens to correspond to our submit button with this giant highlight over here, this giant circle here. So what exactly is our goal? So our goal here is to submit this center in at a specific time based off of our last digit of the timer here. We need to figure that out with a calculation, but we need to first figure out what exactly our goal is with this module. So, what is happening here? There is going to be a chosen string with 5 different words in this word list here, such as angle, grave, bark, ruler, kite, while, query, so on and so forth. And each of them are going to be concatenated, no spaces present at all. And what we need to do is we need to figure out where we are in this string, and of course the string loops around. However, figuring this out won't be so simple because the left and right index happen to not be simply moving by 1. So let's take this for example. So um, the left and right index is what we need to figure out here. And what this means is that whenever you press left up in the top left, it's going to move left that many spaces or by that many letters. So allow me to demonstrate. And these indices will both be between 2 and 5 inclusively and will be co-priming each other. So they will be between 2 and 5. So for example, let's take grave and bark. Let's take grave and bark. Let's combine those two guys together. And let's say if we happen to be at this Romeo right here, right below this bark right here. And let's say our left index happens to be, let's say left is a 3 and right is a 5 for some reason. So if we happen to go left, if we haven't hit left, it would take us 1, 2, 3 spaces to this echo right here. And if we happen to go right, which would take us 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it would take us off to a different word. But this is essentially what we need to do, is we need to figure out which words, we can actually, and a nice way to actually figure this out is we only actually need to figure out 2 of the 5 words that we currently have. But what we want to do is we need to figure out where we are in said word, and we need to figure out what the left and right indexes are, and what we're moving. So figuring out 2 words is really going to be the key here, but we do have the generosity of getting 5 different words. So one of the ways that I tend to start this module off is I actually tend to look for rare letters. For example, immediately I would like to point out the power of the J. J only appears in Dijon. So what this simply means is if you happen to get a J, you know exactly where you're at. This is sort of like, I guess I would say almost your unicorn. Shut up, cars. Apologies for that. That's some morons outside. But if you happen to get the power of the J in Dijon, that immediately means you're at Dijon. There's no counter argument at all. So that means that this is going to be that will be where you're at. However, in some cases like V, for example, there are going to be a couple of cases where, for example, grave, vice, vertigo, and travel, where you'll need to do a little bit more work to figure out exactly where you're at. So generally what I tend to do is I tend to find some of these rarer ones, such as Victor or Yankee, or what's another good one? Perhaps Mike. Mike's another good one. That also pops up in Nomen as well. That's the only one that's the only time that pops up. I believe golf is another good one. Golf is a good one, and so on and so forth. But you really don't want to start from vowels or Romeos because there's quite a few in there that you really don't want to figure that out. So you can press this as many times as you want. There's no harm in it. The only thing that you need to worry about for the submission phase is making sure that you hit the center at the right time. Now, one last thing I want to explain, 2 and 5 inclusive, and they will be co-priming each other. Now, what exactly does co-priming mean? So, take, for example, 2 and 4. This is really the only case where that actually applies. But what co-prime means is that if 2 numbers are co-prime of each other, what this means is that their only common factors are a multiplication of 1. So, normally prime is just 1 in itself. However, if 2 numbers are co-prime, what this means is the only common factor that they share is 1. So what this means is that these numbers don't necessarily have to be prime at all. They don't have to be prime. However, in most cases, most of these guys are actually prime. But what we want to make sure is that the only common factor between each of the 2 numbers is only 1. 1. However, with 2 and 4, the common factors of 2 are 1 and 2, that's prime, and the common factors and the factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. Note that both share 1 and both share 2. So these guys will never pop up together. These guys will never be both left and right index. That is a good way to distinguish that. But because of the fact that 2 is a factor of both 2 and 4, these guys are not coprime of each other. Now 2 and 3, on the other hand, 1 and 3, for example, the only common factor that they have is 1, which means that they are coprime. So that's what that means. Just a little bit of a way to make sure that you touch on that. If I have to say anything wrong, of course, let me know in the comments, but that's kind of the thing we're going to look at for. So let's take a look. Let's just go in one direction and see if we can figure out a good letter that we can start from. Now, hotel. Hotel is actually a really good one that we found here. Actually, hotel is the only case, it only happens in while. So what this means is that this is the word that we're looking at, and this is the current position that we're at. Now, let's see if we can figure out what exactly is our next word and what exactly our left and right indexes are, because we don't know where we came from in the previous word, and we probably don't really want to worry about that quite yet. So let's go maybe right. Now, note, it has to be between 2 and 5. So what this means is that we simply move to I next on this next right here, but this doesn't mean that we can only move one space. So this means we're looking at another word that begins with an India. I'm right. Are there any words that begin with India? Or no, sorry. We could be looking at a couple words that have India in their second letter because there's no words that begin with India. So let's take a look here. Note that spins does have an India in it. However, due to the fact that if we put spins right here, if we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces, 6 spaces to the next India, that means it's not in the 2 and 5 inclusive range. So this means that spins is not an option here. Now, vice could be an option, same with Dijon. Vertigo is not going to be an option because of the fact that obviously it's 4 more spaces away, and then there's going to be just another 3 from while. So, in this case, it is not going to be vertigo. So what this means is we have 3 different options here. This is vice, Dijon, or kite. So now, what we can actually do is we can actually go back to while by hitting the left button, and let's see what we get, and perhaps maybe we can get one of the beginning letters here. So let's go left. So it's going to be blank I something something. This is where we're currently at right now. Now let's hit left and see if we can actually figure out the left index by itself right here. Left takes us back to the lemma. So what this means is that our left index has been determined. So if we go left 1, 2, 3, that takes us to lemma. So this means that our left index is a 3. So now, if we happen to go right again, perhaps we can figure out what word we're actually looking at here, or cross off an option here. So let's go right to an echo. So what this means is that this second one is an echo here. The fourth letter is an echo because if my theories are correct, we went right 5 times. Right. Let's note that down as right 5. Now, if we go left once, we should be able to figure out what word we're actually looking at here. Does it begin with a K or a V? It begins with a K. So our word is kite here. And we're currently at the K right now. So we're at the K. Now, if we go left one more time should take us to an I. It takes us back to the I. And next up, if we hit right from the I, this should take us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to a tango. If we hit right to a tango, and just like that, we have figured out our indexes. So now exactly what do? We figured out our left and right index, and we figured out what words we're currently at. We need at while and kite. So to solve the module, we're going to multiply the left index by 2 and add it to the right index. And then we're going to press the center letter when the last digit of the countdown timer is the least significant number. So we're going to multiply the left by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And now we're going to add 5, which was the right, which gives us 11. Now we're going to use the least significant digit, which corresponds to 1 in the ones position. And we're going to tap that when the last second digit is a 1. And just like that is a solved module. Now, excuse me for just a second. I'll be right back. Apologies for that. I am back. So let's move on to another example. This module is pretty straightforward, but it is a little bit tricky to figure out where each of the where we are currently in the actual display and figuring out what the words that we have present here. So let's take a look at November. November could actually be a huge lead for us here. But at the same time, I'd rather not. There's actually quite a few Novembers, a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. So let's take a look for another letter. Charlie. Charlie could actually be a really good one right here. We have 2 possible options for Charlie. We have vice and crypt. So let's see if we can figure out anything from here. So let's try going maybe right, left. Let's see if we can go right here. Right takes us to an I. So what this means is that it actually cannot be crypt, because if we happen, there's no I in crypt, and there's no word that begins with an India. So what this means is if we happen to have the right index be 5 again, it would simply take us 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 over to the beginning of the next word. So what this means is that we went to vice, and then now we went from the Charlie, we went right some value to an India. So we need to figure out what said value was. So let's go left, perhaps? Let's go left and see if we can figure out where we are in vice. So I believe we're currently at that echo. And actually, we can now be able to figure out our left, our right index, or excuse me, our left index by this case. Let's go left. Left takes us to an I. Now, does any word actually end with an I? Or perhaps begin with it? Now, we could be looking at a kite, for example. We could be looking at... this is an interesting one. I believe we did end up in vice. So let's go right maybe again. Oh, that's interesting. It ends up at a K. A K could be kite, for example, or bark, but I have reason to believe that it's a kite. So let's actually start a kite, for example. Now this could be right. This could be from that K. This could be right 3, for example. So right could be 3, perhaps, because it could go from K. We press right. That takes us 3 spaces to the echo here. Now, let's see where we're at. Let's see maybe if left is 2, for example. Well, actually, let's go right. Right takes us to Romeo. So now there are quite a few Romeos here, but if we happen to go left again, let's see if we can figure out where we're at. Left takes us to an alpha. Interesting. So if we happen to go right 3 spaces, we know that this guy is a Romeo, and if we happen to go left, we could potentially be looking at arrow here because of the fact that we went right 3 spaces, and we actually could be going left 2. Left 2 could be a possibility. Now, if my theory is correct, and we happen to be on arrow, if we happen to be at this alpha right here, so let's unmark all of these guys here. If my theory is correct, if we go left twice, that should take us to tango. It does indeed. So now, if we happen to make sure that right was indeed 3, this should take me to a Romeo. It does indeed. So this means that we are currently at the first Romeo right here, and we figured out our indexes, right being 3 spaces and left being 2 spaces. So let's do our little formula here. We're going to multiply the left index by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And now we're going to add 3, giving us 7. And now we're going to submit when the last digit is a 7. Very simple module. It can be a little bit tricky to figure out where you're at. But just like that, this is all module. Let's take a look at one final example, and let's see if we can get perhaps the J, the Dijon. But we do have a Victor. Victor is a very good starting point because of the fact that there are only a few options here that we could potentially be looking at. We have a V. Our next letter, let's go right, for example, is a G. Ooh, a G could be very helpful to us. A G could be very good for us, or it could be very bad. We could be looking at green or grave or something of the sorts. But for now, let's go under the assumption that it is vertigo, because V going to G is indeed possible from going to vertigo, because we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces over to golf. If we happen to go left, we should be getting one of these guys in between vertigo here, E, R, T, or I. Can we? We do. Now, let's try this. So we went from the Victor 5 spaces over to the golf, which was right 5, and we went left to the echo, which was 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces from here. This could be right 5, left 4. Now, if my theory is correct, if we happen to hit right again, it should take us to an Oscar. It does indeed. So we are currently at vertigo, and if we happen to go left 4 from this Oscar here, just to make absolutely sure, left should take us to 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to a Romeo. It does indeed. So we are currently at vertigo. We are at the Romeo right now, and we figured out our left and right indexes by some means of luck. But this is our answer now. So let's multiply the left index by 2. Left index by 2 is going to be 4 times 2, which will give us 8. And now we're going to add 5, which is going to give us 13. Now we're going to submit the last digit is a 3, which is our least significant digit. And just like that is a solved module. As always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to stay crazy, stay cool, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.